All right, hello and welcome to a special edition of Office Hours. This is episode 12, where we answer questions, give philosophical perspectives, formulate and explore arguments, and deep dive into particular topics of your choice. Now, this was a sort of open-ended request from the Patreon side. Strider asked us to cover the topic of the game of debate. And so what better way to cover the topic of debate than to have a small debate about it. Those of you who don't know, Sierra and I met in debate club.
Who's Sierra?
Who is Sierra? just some random chick who lives with me.
Makes all your babies and all your food.
We met at debate club many years ago.
A decade ago now.
Indeed, and our wedding anniversary is just 3 days away.
Yes, but let's not get sidetracked.
Well, 8 years of
debating, more or less.
Enjoying the game of debate.
So we decided to do this in a more or less formal fashion. The motion in question is this house believes that the game of debate is good. And we'll do 3-minute opening arguments, followed by 2-minute rebuttals, followed by a 5-minute back and forth, followed by 2-minute conclusions in reverse order.
Yeah.
So I will be defending the game of debate.
Yes.
And you will be saying it's a waste of time.
Indeed.
So
as we all know it is.
I have the timer here.
Very good.
I guess I'll time in.
So you will open because you're affirmative. I am negative, so I will go second.
This house believes that the game of debate is good.
And then I will do my closing arguments, and you will end the debate.
Correct. All right, here we go. All right. It has become very common in the digital internet age to talk about debating on the internet, on social media, on Facebook, as this tremendous waste of time. I believe nothing could be further from the truth. That, as Christopher Hitchens says, time spent debating is almost never time spent wasted if you approach it in the right way. Now, debating suffers from a few straw men or perhaps false expectations that we can access immediately. We can access truth just by arguing it out, and that's of course not how it works. And also, if you view argumentation and the sort of judicial approach, arguing with a prosecutor and a defense attorney back and forth as a complete path to knowledge, you will be disappointed and you will be let down. But if we avoid these two false expectations, that it will give us immediate access to truth, or that it is a kind of epistemically complete path to truth, we can see in debate the possibility both of training our minds to think better, to think more quickly, more clearly, to find the good patterns of thought, and to distinguish those from bad patterns of thought, things like logical fallacies, they say, and other kinds of bad arguments. We can train ourselves to think more clearly, more quickly, more accurately, and just as importantly as training ourselves to think, we can also defend the things that we value. We live in a social world where a tremendous amount of power and influence hinges upon our ability to communicate clearly, and if we cannot defend the things we care about, then people with worse ideas will beat out people with better ideas. It's not enough to just hold correct opinions. We have to also be able to defend them, and sometimes to attack and criticize bad ideas, because that is part of how we get rid of them. But finally, and maybe this won't necessarily connect with everybody, but it will be valuable to some, learning the art and skill of debate is a path to connection with some of the greatest minds in history. Some of the greatest minds in history were engaged in a long-standing, often multi-generational, often civilizationally long conversation. They are debating with each other, and learning the skill of debate allows us to follow those conversations, to connect with some of the greatest minds of history, and there is intrinsic value in that. And I yield my final 8 seconds.
Excellent. Ready when you are, timekeeper?
And begin.
Well, I think it is very interesting that you had to begin with a hedge to clarify exactly the reasons why we as a culture already have the correct opinion, which is that debate is a waste of time. You had to immediately address those and essentially make my argument for me, because the truth is, debate is a waste of time. Sure, we're connecting with the greats of thinking. Yes, we do that by reading books. I know, yes, we're all part of the same story, but like, we are not talking to Plato. We are not talking, in fact, we're not even talking, the vast majority of us are never even talking in the same language as those great thinkers in the first place. We're all experiencing things through an intermediary of somebody else who's telling us that that's what Plato said. All of us, in fact, are forming our opinions on the basis of having an opinion given to us by someone else. And whatever arguments that people love to believe that they are making in these debates, and the people who do, whether you're doing it on Facebook or you're doing it on a major stage, everyone believes that they are making genuine and serious arguments, but the truth of whether it affects or benefits anyone is whether it changes hearts and minds, and debates are not where that happens. The real truth, no matter where you are, no matter what your platform is, if you want to move hearts and minds, you don't sit there and have a debate. You're not arguing with people in comment sections, even arguing with people in your own house. That is not how you win hearts and minds. It's not how you actually move culture. There's something that is outside of the debate conversation where arguments and premises either resonate with you or they don't. And ideas come to you sometimes frequently over the course of your life, and the movement from one idea and one way of thinking to another almost never happens either in the audience or as a participant in an actual debate. Very few people are freaks like you and I who would actually prefer to sit there listening to other people talk to decide what we think the opinion is. The other thing that debate never teaches you, because it teaches you a lot of structures and it teaches you a lot of ways of thinking and like bugaboos to look for, like you're saying, ad hominems and whatever. Nowhere in debate is it actually teaching you how to discern which argument won. That's actually a quality that still exists in you outside of the debate ring. No one can teach you how to discern between a good argument and a bad argument. No one can actually teach you that judgment of whether this applies to your culture, whether this applies to your people, whether this is actually a good idea or not, because there are plenty of very articulate philosophers who say horrendous things. I'm thinking of John Rawls, people who have, it's very well articulated, it's a great argument, there's nothing wrong with the argument except that it's a bad idea. And that discernment is not something that debate actually teaches. So sure, it's a good waste of time if that's what you like to do on Facebook.
And time. All right. And 2-minute rebuttals. I will begin now. Well, I feel like you agreed with the anticipated incompleteness that I said. I liked your point about discernment, and I think that fits in very nicely with the point that I said about the incompleteness of debate as a path to truth. However, that incompleteness is not in itself an argument against the utility of debate. I can see why it would make some people feel like it's a waste of time if that is their expectation. But again, nothing is not worth doing because it isn't the only thing worth doing. Nothing else in life works that way, and debate doesn't work that way either. Now, you brought up the point about intermediaries. No one is speaking directly to Plato. We're reading interpretations and translations and other people's summaries of him. And that is often true. We can read his, original works, perhaps in translations if we don't read Greek. However, that does not matter. The fact that we're reading interpretations and translations, Plato himself was probably not offering original arguments, but, expansions of things that he had heard before. The point is the engagement with the ideas and practicing redoing that summarizing ourselves. Perhaps we have no original ideas ourselves. It would be hard pressed to judge how original is my own idea if we look back at the influences that went into it. And again, that doesn't matter. If we are trying to find the strongest position or develop a stronger position, originality is not a key component of that. And you brought up the question of, does it change hearts and minds? That's also a very valid point. Again, feeds into the incompleteness point. Is it sufficient? No, we have Aristotle's book Rhetoric for that. We can use other means to persuade. But there are some people, perhaps including ourselves, who are more persuaded by clear, structured debate, and still worth learning for that purpose. All right. Are you ready?
Yes.
And go.
All right. I did not address this sufficiently in my first message, and I will. You brought it up again, so I can address it now. This issue of truth. I'm going to provide a little bit of a critique, K-theory, on the premise that truth is something that can be arrived at, and whether that's something discernible at all. So, like, to whatever degree debate has any capacity to arrive at anything even resembling truth, what is truth, my dude? And what is truth? As said Pontius Pilate, because that the fact that no one knows what it is and no one can truly arrive at it, that is a, if debate believes that it can push us any closer toward something called truth, what is it? What are we arriving at? When will we know we are there? Debate is not getting us any closer to arriving at it, and indeed, as you have to keep saying, it's not sufficient. Okay, well, if debate's not sufficient, then what the hell? What purpose is it serving? Because the very niche community that really enjoys it, again, are not big culture movers. I'm sorry, babe. Philosophers are kind of lame. They very rarely get married and have 4 children. It's very lucky. And you're not even ugly. So really, I'm not sure you are a philosopher, but that's not the point. You talked also a lot about this idea of arriving at the strongest position. Again, as though there is some kind of mechanism happening in the world or in society that is moving in a particular direction, and that there is a better position, and not that we live in what is actually true, which is a series of adjacent relative realities. So there is no singular truth that can be arrived at via debate, and the strongest position to what? For whom? And by what means? So basically, not only is it insufficient, as I feel like I have covered, it's not doing anything. There's no ends for this entire activity.
All right, now the 5-minute back and forth.
The shenanigans.
Go ahead and start. Do you mind if I jump in right off the bat? Because you brought up this point about, like, what even is truth? It's a point that seems reminiscent of something.
It's very evocative.
But I think this actually ties in very closely to your point about how can you even tell who won a debate, which is something I don't think I was really able to address very well.
Who wins?
Yeah,
and who knows?
And the judgment portion is inescapable. I would agree with that. At the end of the day, it still does come down to our own discernment, our own experience. But what the skills that we learn in debating can do is it can cut through a lot of the complexity and get us back to first principles about what we care about at a fundamental level. And the debate is not capable of answering those questions. Like I said, it's not incomplete. However, the incompleteness does not mean it's that ability to get back to the bedrock is not useful for untangling questions.
What kind?
Question: should we invade Iraq? Could be a question. And then
who's we?
Yeah. Well, it could be NATO.
Well, so hang on. This is why debate? Why is it two people? What is benefited by that structure of debate that couldn't be achieved by just practicing writing?
Well, there's a couple benefits. So the first of all, I tried to start with an example of martial arts. Right, sparring is not fighting. Sparring is a simulation of fighting, but with constraints, so that people don't get injured. If we debate without constraints... Okay, wait a second. Okay, so hang on. Again, so are you trying to compare that sparring, which is, logically, right, is practicing for ultimate fighting, where eventually we're trying to kill you. We're trying to kill each other. Correct. Cool. Sounds fun. Yes. Just all about the mental and physical combat sports. Yes. But what is the analog for debate? Because as far as I can tell, debate just has higher levels of debate. So what is this, a pyramid scheme of thinking about ideas? And again, who are these arbiters? Let me give an anthropological explanation of that. If you look at the war chiefs of especially Ireland and Scotland, you find people who are not necessarily... demographic. Yeah, well, there are other examples of this. They're just a particularly poignant one. You find examples of war chiefs who are not necessarily the most physically intimidating, the most powerful, the most commanding, but you find people who are very persuasive, very charismatic, and this has led to certain cultural traits of the Celts as a people of the Middle Ages. And so the ability, and this is before debate, and another example we have to bring up because there's just so
wait a second, hang on, whoa. Did you just tell me persuasion and charisma, which has nothing to do with arguments? I thought we were getting to bedrock. I thought we were getting to truth. No. You're saying moving hearts and minds.
You're switching back and forth. You were talking about what's the real world application, what's the fighting analog if debate is sparring.
All right.
And I'm saying in the real world before formal debate, people did settle things because we live in societies when we communicate with each other where power is distributed in accordance with who can persuade other people, and arguments have always had a role in that. Now,
okay, so no offense, but beloved, what has debate done for me lately? That is literally an 800-year-old example.
Well, you say this, since you brought up a personal example from me, I'll bring up a personal example from you. You are a copywriter who makes more money an hour than I do.
But again, that's persuasion. That's not, that's not debate.
Yes, it is. It borrows the same skill. And that's like saying that fighting is not sparring because it doesn't have the constraints. You can't take a UFC fighter who's trained with a speed bag and say his ability in the ring is not...
But I'm not making arguments when I'm copywriting. When I'm copywriting, I'm trying to persuade...
Yes, you are.
No, see,
yes,
I'm using...
You are making what are called enthememes, which are arguments with an omitted section. With an omitted premise.
If that is true,
yes,
I'll give you that the structure of an argument is something that I certainly use. Like, if you feel like this, then you should get this product because then you will feel like that.
Yeah.
Whatever. That is not the same as what you were initially talking about working toward arriving at something like truth, grappling with great ideas.
That has nothing... I agree with you, as you expect I might, that truth is not necessarily something that we can arrive at in an objective sense. However, we can arrive at better positions, stronger positions, clearer positions, and that's as good of a stand-in for truth as we can hope to have.
I think we've only got 1 second left, sir.
Okay. Well, let's move on to our concluding arguments then. So I have 2 minutes.
All right.
Ready? And go.
Ready as I'll ever be, sir. In conclusion, the problem with debate is that while it loves to give itself the trappings of being a meaningful combat sport, while it loves to pretend that it has can bring lots of value, can move us toward stronger positions, toward some semblance of truth, that we can grapple with the things that have beleaguered us as human beings for time immemorial. The reality is, if we are still grappling with the same things after literally millennia of debating about these things, are we any closer to arriving at a conclusion, or is this actually just I'm not going to say anything crass. That would be a terrible way to end this. We all know what words I'm thinking of. A waste of time. If after 6,000 years we're still talking about the same essential problems of I don't know, Plato was 3,000 years ago? I don't even know. I'm not a historian, I'm a debater, guys. I'm here to be persuasive. After all these years, we're still grappling with the exact same topics. We're still dealing with a lot of the same challenges. So at what point will we be done debating? At what point will we have discussed something to the point that we've actually come to any kind of conclusions? And moreover, whether we're arriving at truth or something, stronger ideas, we're eliminating bad ideas by, duking it out there and in the Facebook comments, as you do. As an exercise, we are far more likely to be effective at convincing the people who matter the most to us of any position that we want, whether this is interpersonal with our friends and family, whether this is even at a local level, by taking almost any other action is going to be far more effective. Interpersonal persuasion from one person to the next, voting in your local area, learning to write and just articulate what you're thinking is more effective than debate. Debate's a waste.
Okay.
Also, this was not nearly enough time. I want to talk about this forever.
You said you've got Halloween costumes to sew. So
it's a waste. And I want to waste so much time on it.
I will do my concluding argument here.
Excellent.
So, All right. Well, you basically, I felt like your conclusion summarized the things that I opened with, which you called hedges, but were really necessary context that would apply to any other good thing. Of course, the fact that debate is not sufficient or complete as a path to better information or better persuasion is not a reason that it's not a good thing to do. But you asked a very interesting question: are we any closer? I'm reminded of the story of
I am very clever. That's a good question.
Lewis Carroll's Through the Looking Glass of the Red Queen saying, Alice, you have to run faster and faster and faster in order to stay in the same place. Yes, we do have to keep having these same arguments over and over again because we are the same animals. We still have to find food. We still have to fight wars. We still have to do the fucking laundry, We still have to do, and we're going to wake up tomorrow, we'll have all the laundry done, and we're going to have to wake up next week and do it all again. And that doesn't make it not worth doing, because those people who had these debates in the past were them, and we are us. We are different, and we need to develop these skills in the same way that all other humans have. We fought a war in the 20th century. Guess what? We're going to need to fight some more now. The fact that we fought wars in the past is not reason that we need to, therefore, abandon skills. What's the point? No, that's not how life works.
That is what they thought in 1990.
Yes, and they were very, very wrong. So,
tragically wrong.
So embrace the conflict. Embrace the challenge. Embrace the utility and the joy. The joy in the conflict of debate, the mental stimulation, the path to, again, incomplete, but very useful in persuasion, in thinking skills for yourself. And at what point will we be done? Never. How will you persuade people to vote differently? You might debate with them. You might have an argument with them. How will you persuade yourself as far as what sort of action to take? Well, you might have a debate with yourself, and the skills that you use to debate with others are the skills you use to debate with yourself. So, in conclusion, debate is good.
Very good.
All right. Shall we share our notes? Because note-taking is an important part. Sierra's notes are much prettier than mine.
That is not entirely true. If you look, let's see.
That's kind of washed out, yeah.
You can see as I get faster that we get a lot more questionable.
Mine is just a complete hodgepodge of...
Well, but that's, you took... Yeah, but your words are legible. They get real cursive-y.
Yeah. So...
I also do lines because I was trying to match it up like it was old school debate. But
the important part in debate is just doing it, watching it. I can't recommend Christopher Hitchens, especially with William Lane Craig, William Dembski. Those are great debate. Reza Aslan.
The important part is don't waste your time on it because the only thing you'll get is a wife and children.
Well, yeah, it that may or may not follow. Speaking of logical fallacies. Speaking of logical fallacies. But it might, it can't hurt your chances. Well, actually, it probably can, depending on how you do it. So,
it really depends.
I guess we should close by saying, take the risk of thinking for yourself. Much more happiness, truth, beauty, and wisdom will come to you that way.
Christopher Hitchens.
Conclude with the Christopher Hitchens debate line.
That was the big... You really... Look, the true bookend
history
of this debate was not the fact that we used something resembling an actual debate structure where affirmative starts and affirmative ends, because of course negative always has the advantage in debate, and so the only advantage that affirmative has is starting the argument and finishing it. But the real winner of this entire debate is posthumously Christopher Hitchens. Round of applause, because he was in the beginning and the end.
Which I'd like to say is a win for debate.
It's a win for men named Christopher like debate.
And if you want to get better at this game, the best thing you can do, as with most other sports,
just listen to Christopher Hitchens.
Is to watch it. There are great...
I will say William Lane Craig and Christopher Hitchens is very delightful.
Wonderful. Yeah.
It's a good time.
Yeah. So hope that's helpful. Hope that answers your questions.
Waste of time. Don't
partially,
do it.
And at least gives you a starting point for how to think about the game of debate within the context of a debate. Thanks for listening.